Hi, this is Allison Sheridan of the NosillaCast podcast, hosted at podfeet.com, a technology geek podcast with an ever so slight Apple bias. Today is Sunday, November 16th, 2025, and this is show number 1071. I'm actually out of town this week playing with my darling grandchildren, but we never miss a show at the NosillaCast. Realize that if you're hearing this before Sunday night, the 16th at 5 p.m. Pacific time, this is your hint that there will be no live show this week. Luckily, we've got two terrific topics, so let's get stuck in. Last week, I teased you by telling you that Eddie Tonkoi sent in a terrific recording about how he created a website for his wife's books using the static site generator called Hugo. We did have the high nerd-level version on Programming by Stealth last week, but this week, as promised, we get to hear the less nerdy version. Enjoy!
This is Eddie Tonkoi, back to tell you about a new project, this time an element of our burgeoning publishing empire. My wife, Joan Tonkoi, has fallen in love with and dedicated herself towards writing creative fiction. She is passionate about it and loves writing, bringing characters to life and letting those characters explore the worlds she creates. I am creative, but not in that way, and by happy circumstance, we complement one another very well. In that I have the passion to support Joan and I have the technical skills to take on all the not writing a novel aspects of the venture, such as editing, publishing, and marketing. This is a publishing empire I'm building, taking a cue from Jill from the Northwoods there, so I'm not here to tell you about it all, but I am here to tell you about one small component, and then I'll be back to tell you about another. Essentially, how I'm using my Mac in 1,000 different ways to support Joan. Today, I'm going to cover a project that sprang up out of nowhere, consumed 5 days of my life, and taught me new knowledge and skills along the way. As is best, it started with a problem to be solved. So, let's start there. Our indie author website was managed by Kit, which was great for building and maintaining an email list. However, I realized that it wasn't searchable by ChatGPT, which could limit discovery. To take control and optimize for search, I decided to switch to a static website built with Hugo, hosted on Cloudflare pages, and deployed via GitHub. How did I get to this idea? Well, I wanted it searchable by ChatGPT, so I asked ChatGPT for its advice. In just 4 days, my new website was up and running. In this post, I'll share my journey and the decisions I made along the way. So, what is Hugo? It's found at gohugo.io. Hugo positions itself as the world's fastest framework for building websites. That sounds perfect for me, but what is it? Well, the next paragraph on the website conveniently tells us Hugo is one of the most popular open source static site generators. With its amazing speed and flexibility, Hugo makes building websites fun again. Even more perfect. So, it is a tool for making static websites. Back in the day, I made my own websites by opening a text editor and typing in the HTML. There was nothing fancy. No fancy JavaScript, no dynamic insertion of fancy content. Just a simple text file with quick and simple rendering as a web page. In my mind, that's what a static website is. Something pure, something simple, something easy for me to understand and own. Not necessarily better than a rich dynamic website, but what I wanted. Hugo is a tool that lets the user create templates for pages. So I have a book page template and have a markdown file with the content I want for a specific book. And Hugo reads those files and spits out a directory of HTML files with everything blended together. This allows me to create a complex page once and reuse it across multiple books, saving both time and effort. So how does Hugo work? Well, Hugo starts with a layout, which in my case gave me a decent website all by itself. At the heart of the layout are templates for types of pages, such as an individual book page or a book series page. These templates also include partials, which are reusable pieces of HTML that can be used across multiple pages. For example, I might want to display a book cover with a white border and a caption underneath on both book and series pages. Instead of duplicating this code across both templates, I create a book cover partial with the desired formatting. Then I can simply include this partial in both templates using simple code. Opening curly brackets, partial, book cover.html with a period, and then closing the curly brackets. This means that if I ever want to change the book cover format, so maybe I want to have a black border, I only need to update the single partial file and the change will be reflected everywhere it's used. In essence, this is the beauty of Hugo, creating reusable templates and partials that make it easy to maintain and update my website. Now, for the content, we can rely on the fact that Hugo has a fixed structure determined by the layout I chose at the start. I have a template for a book page, and I also have a folder called Content. Inside that is a folder called Books. Hugo assumes that everything inside the Books folder is a book, and will create web pages for anything in here. So, one subfolder in Books is called Murder in Tregon Bay, and that has just 3 files: index.md, cover.jpg, and extra1.jpg. With just those 3 files, Hugo will take the contents of index.md, it will take the book template and any partials it references, and use these to create my Murder in Tregon Bay book page. It'll put a nice book cover image on the page, and lower down it puts the extra image, all according to the template. Now the main file, index.md, can be as simple or as complex as you want. Mine is quite long and gives all the information presented on the page, from title to ISBN to reviews to frequently asked questions to the blurb. A snippet goes along the lines of title, Murder in Tregon Bay, summary, a Devon Coast mystery, date, 2025-10-11, series, Tregon Bay mysteries, etc., etc. Now, this file is never actually present on the final web page, but it is used in Hugo's computations to create the Murder in Tregon Bay page. Apparently, Hugo can handle this metadata in a number of formats, but this is the format that I used. Now, I've got a page, but one of my goals in this migration was visibility for tools like ChatGPT. So if someone asked ChatGPT to recommend a great character-first mystery set in Devon, then ChatGPT would know where to send them. That means making the site easy for ChatGPT and other search engines, other AI, to read and understand. And that means something called Answer Engine Optimization, AEO. But what is AEO, you ask? Simply put, AEO is the practice of optimizing a website to rank higher in search engine results pages for specific questions or answers. This is different from traditional search engine optimization, SEO, which focuses on ranking for generic keywords and phrases. It's also fully supported by the search engines and bots. And it's not spammy. In my case, I wanted to optimize my website for AEO because my wife was writing a series of books that are all part of a larger mystery series. I wanted my website to appear at the top of the search results when someone searched for questions like, what is the first book in the Tregon Bay Mysteries series? Or, who is the author of Murder in Tregon Bay? I don't want the response to that question to be a link to our website. I want the response to be the answer and a link to our website. As I delved deeper into AEO, I quickly realized that it was closely related to traditional SEO. In fact, many of the same techniques used for SEO also apply to AEO. For example, using relevant keywords in your website's content, optimizing your meta tags, and creating high-quality, unique content are all important for both SEO and AEO. However, AEO, Answer Engine Optimization, requires a slightly different approach. For instance, I needed to focus on creating content that was specifically designed to answer common questions related to my books. This meant writing detailed summaries, frequently asked questions, and other types of content that were designed to provide value to my readers. Now let's pause there because it's quite wonderful. Optimizing my website for search is the same as optimizing my website for people. How charming. Now let's think about deployment. When I'm ready to deploy my Hugo website, I use a simple command that synchronizes my local changes with my GitHub repository and updates Cloudflare pages. This streamlined process involves building my website in production mode using Hugo. So the command is just Hugo --environment production --gc --minify --clean destination directory. Right, well, this command tells Hugo to build my website in production mode, which means it will optimize the build for deployment. The --gc flag removes unnecessary files. --minify CSS and JavaScript files, and --clean destination directory ensures a clean output directory. It deletes files that I don't need. Next, I've got staging and committing the changes using Git. So there's two commands there, git add -a and git commit -m production build update for Cloudflare pages. This command stages all changes in my Git repository and commits them with a meaningful commit message. And that commit message describes the changes made in this commit. And then pushing the changes to my GitHub repository with git push. This command sends the committed changes to my remote GitHub repository, making them available for Cloudflare pages to fetch and deploy. Now, I've found that Cloudflare's GitHub integration makes it incredibly easy to automate the deployment process for my Hugo website. To get started, I simply signed into my GitHub account from within my Cloudflare account and authorized the connection. Then, I selected the repository that contains my Hugo website, and Cloudflare took care of the rest. From that point on, Cloudflare uses a system it refers to as workers to set up a webhook in my GitHub repository which listens for changes such as new commits or updates. Whenever changes are detected, the webhook triggers a deployment to Cloudflare pages, and then Cloudflare automatically pulls the updated code from my GitHub repository and updates my website, ensuring that it's always up to date and reflecting the latest changes. Now, I did encounter problems. It took me about 2.5 days to create the entire website for the series and the books since I had all the information in my database. I'm using Tap Forms, by the way, which let me create a script that outputs the contents of IndexMD for each book. I then spent another 1.5 or 2.5 days trying desperately to get the SEO and AEO part working. I eventually got to a decent place, good enough to leave and come back to later on, but that was surprisingly hard. In a nutshell, Google and others looked for specially encoded information in a page and were struggling to get it just right so that Google was happy. More on that another time if I ever really solve it. So in the end, 5 days after starting, what did we gain? We have a pretty new website that is ours at joantonkoi.com. JERNTONKOI.com, by the way. And that website's got room to expand beyond just mailing lists. That's glorious. I learned a new tool, which is always fun. We're saving money by eliminating our web host Green Geeks, which I've got nothing against them, but we just don't need it anymore. The website is, at least in part, being presented nicely to Google. We have over 150 unique visitors a day. I've no idea about the old site, but this feels good to me. And ChatGPT still cannot search the site. Oh, it turns out ChatGPT still cannot search the site because, well, ChatGPT cannot search the web. Things you learn, eh? But GPT-bot can search it. Googlebot can search it. And it seems like this is in fact how things work. The bots index the web, and the engines read the index. Whether or not the old site was perfectly capable, really, I'll never know. If you are interested in knowing more, you can find me and all the other lovely Nosilla castaways at podfeet.com/Slack. If you're curious about what I did, please ask me, Eddie Tonkoi, and if you're curious about how to do website management properly, there are plenty of others there far more knowledgeable in it than me. So come in and join the friendly community. And if you're interested in having a good read from an indie author, come along to joantonkoi.com, that's JERNTONKOI.com, and have a look at all the books we have available on our website.
Thanks so much for that, Eddie. It really makes me want to create some new websites just to get to learn how Hugo works. I've got to stop doing new projects. Anyway, I immediately bought Murder in Tregan Bay as soon as I heard about Joan's books, and I got to tell you, I'm really enjoying it. I hope you'll all go to joantonkoi.com to check out the website and buy the books. I know times are really hard right now for so many people, and it seems kind of insensitive to ask for money to support the podcast. I tell you what, this week, what if instead of you pulling out your wallets, you instead tell a friend about the shows we do here? Maybe tell them how awesome Adam Engst is on Chit Chat Across the Pond. Or you could tell them how brilliant Bart is on Programming by Stealth. Heck, you might even be able to think of something nice to say about me and my contributions on those shows in the NosillaCast. Now, if you're feeling really generous, maybe you could go write a 5-star review in Apple Podcasts or wherever you can find to leave a review. I put a link to the NosillaCast in the show notes for Apple Podcasts. And just so you know, you have to scroll way, 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 way down on the page to get to the review section. I hope to see some new reviews in there this week. Maybe you could be as complimentary as our latest one from Pieman7. Well, today, Bart, we're not doing a Programming by Stealth. We're not doing a security bits. We're doing a regular old chit-chat here, huh?
A proper light one. Well, as light as I get.
That's true. There might be code falling around somewhere here and there, but we'll try to stay out of the deep woods as much as we can, right?
Right. And of all the human beings on planet Earth that I want to talk to about this, it's you.
Yay.
Because
I read the show notes and I was just like, good luck keeping me from talking a lot with you about this, because I think it's, well, everything you've written is really well written, really well thought out, as always. But it's just a fun subject. It's really an interesting perspective you've got here.
Cool.
We should quit teasing. What are we talking about today?
We are talking about my attempts to embrace AI without giving up on my privacy more than I want to. And a bit like with home automation, I have watched it carefully from day one, but I haven't actually done anything until day 2 or 3, if you get what I mean, sort of a second wave.
Right.
And I kind of like that because I watched the really early adopters get burned and just stand back and wait. And then I watch the industry react and then I jump in. So to my family, I'm still this weird early adopter. But in the Nosilla Castaway community, I'm kind of a laggard, right?
Yeah, I think so in a way.
But, you know, I actually have been getting really stuck in all of this year, to be honest. And I started from a little island of safety. I started in work because in a corporate environment, especially if you're in a large organization in Europe, in the public sector, there are literally laws about this kind of thing. You actually have to use it responsibly if you're working for work. And so you know that, firstly, it's not my data, right? If the AI tool messes up, it's not my data, it's the university's data. Now,
wait, but that makes you more privacy conscious or less privacy conscious?
It makes me more conscious of sticking to the rules. Because then if the provider messes up and I stuck to the rules, well, I'm good. And
because it's a work-provided provider.
Precisely. Yeah, so any workplace that's on the ball at the moment is going to have a policy. And at the very, very least, they're going to put some guidelines and say, you are free to use AI tools if, or thou shalt not. Right? That is a lot of places' default start. Just no. But any place that gives you a tool, they have checked that tool and they have probably opened their wallet. And in exchange for opening your wallet, what you get is privacy. Because corporations have proprietary data and or sensitive data, so they will pay these AI companies to use the LLMs without exchanging data for the privilege. They will exchange money for the privilege. Whereas if
they also have the luxury of doing not on device necessarily, but within your firewall. Right. Maintaining the data, right?
Precisely, yes. You can do it within data boundaries if we're going to use very fancy pants terms. So if it stays within your data boundary, you're right, then it's safe. And so it's a really fun place for me to dip my toe in without feeling bad about it. And it inspired me. I started to like it so much that I wanted it at the weekends, in the evenings, when working on personal projects. I was like, this is too good. I'm not keeping this for my work stuff. I want it for me. But
okay, so there you got your safe start.
I got my safe start. So with my work hat on, the tools that I was confined to were the enterprise version of Microsoft Copilot, which the show notes here say Microsoft Copilot. It's changed names so many times since I started drafting these notes. I think it's Microsoft 365 Copilot today, but tomorrow it could be something else. So you were saying you're not sure what date this is being published, so who knows?
Well, I'll change it to Microsoft 365 Copilot just for the comedy.
Yes. Apple Intelligence is great as long as you don't turn on the ChatGPT connector, because Apple, just their policy is we literally can't see your data, so we couldn't abuse it if we tried. Okay, great. Perfect. That meets all of the requirements.
But that's a requirement of your work is blocking that, right? With MDM?
Yeah, so we have mobile device management that says you may use Apple Intelligence, but not the ChatGPT option. So that option is gone for me.
When S Lady says, I have no idea, or does it even ask you, Can I ask ChatGPT? Oh, It won't even offer. Okay.
Yeah, because when I go into the control panel settings app, the button is grayed out and it just says this is disabled by your organization. Okay. So Siri knows she can't.
But that's cool that they have it so that can be stopped for organizations. That's very good.
Apple are on the ball. Apple on the ball.
Yeah.
The other thing I get to do is use GitHub Copilot, because that's another one of these Microsoft Copilots. And again, I can use my corporate identity to get access to GitHub Copilot. And we're actually free to use any LLM as long as it's GDPR compliant and as long as we do not give it any sensitive data. So we can use it for non-sensitive data if it's GDPR compliant, but we can't share sensitive data. So if we had some student data or some finance data, it is not allowed onto the general LLMs. It has to stick in Microsoft Copilot.
Now, just to make sure not everybody listening has probably been with us since you fully explained what GDPR was. Basically, it's the privacy laws in Europe that protect you use of data. It protects you, but you have a responsibility to protect data for people whose data you manage. And in your case, you've got access to things like records of the students.
Right. Yeah, because we're an educational institution, so we have information about the people we teach and how they're doing. And that's sensitive information.
Right. Okay. So you're using all of this. So you're even using LLMs at work. What are you using?
So I'm using them as part of embedded tools. So I'm going to tell you the tools I've ended up using in the order I fell in love with them. So my first thing was when you're using corporate versions of the Microsoft suite, the Edge browser is definitely your friend because it gives you completely ad-free search and stuff. And it searches not just the web, but it also searches your Office 365 data. It's just a really nice place. And there's a giant big Copilot button. It's just like in your face. Copilot, click me, click me, click me. And it's like, okay.
So let me clarify what you said. Edge is not a browser that gives you an ad-free experience. Edge, as part of Microsoft 365 from a corporate environment, might be ad-free.
Right.
Because I don't think that's what the rest of us see.
Exactly, right? So this is the weird thing. They have the same name for everything, but it's not the same product.
Right.
It's really not
but the big thing you're talking about is that you've got Copilot right there in Edge.
It's right there, and it opens up as a sidebar, and it is aware of what you're doing. So it has a green shield, which tells you are in a corporate environment, your data is safe. So our rule basically is if the shield is there, you're properly signed in, 2 thumbs up. If the shield is off, sorry, you're not signed in, you're not safe to go. And so I see the little green shield, and I can type into that box whatever I want, and it knows what's in my tabs, it knows what's in my OneDrive, it knows what I can access on Teams, it knows what I can see on SharePoint. So I can ask it questions with context. So it's like, I remember doing an Excel sheet 3 months ago about blah, blah, blah. And it'll go, oh yeah, here it is. Thank you.
So, but if I turn on Copilot in Edge, I'm not promised any privacy at that point, right?
Correct. What you are getting is the free version, so you're getting less privacy. You are exchanging some of your data for access to that LLM.
Okay. Even though I'm paying for Office 365, that's totally different. No, I've got Microsoft 365, don't I?
Yeah, I was going to say, if you have a 365, then you have the 365 version, and then what you ask ChatGPT stays within your account, your data boundary.
Even if it's a personal account?
I need to double check the fine print on that. But if it's a family account with like 2 or 3 sub-accounts, I believe the answer is yes.
Interesting. Okay. As soon as I turned it on, I logged in to, with Copilot on the side. It said, follow these steps to use ChatGPT Exporter Chrome extension.
Huh. Exporter,
Copilot did that. Yeah.
It didn't offer me that.
Maybe I'll hold off on that one. I'll let you keep going. This isn't all about me, but I'm trying to relate, what your experience is. Okay.
So because it's there and it was able to start giving me useful information, I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. This is actually quicker than anything I was doing before. So then the next logical place where the button was just in my face going, auga, auga, was in VS Code, because I'm signed into our corporate GitHub, and therefore VS Code knows we're GitHub customers. And so it was really like, hey, you have Copilot. How would you like Copilot? Do you want some Copilot? And I was like, well, yeah, actually, let's give this a go. Turns out it's brilliant. And even
ironically, I was on the beta of Copilot, like, what was that, 3 or 4 years ago?
Right.
And it does a lot more than it did then, but when it did before for me was fabulous. When you start writing some code, you'd start writing some if statement, and it knows you're in JavaScript, and it just goes, here, do you want all this? And you're like, why, that's actually exactly what I was about to type.
Yeah. Oh, it's really good. And I'm happy to say, actually, that even if you use a personal GitHub account, the privacy is acceptable if you're not working on like proprietary super secret code or something.
And everything I do open source anyway.
Yeah, so there you go.
And it's Microsoft, and they own GitHub, and they've consumed all of that. So,
Yeah. And then that was cool, right? That really opened my eyes. I was like, okay, this isn't going to do my job for me. And I was pretty sure it wouldn't. What it is doing is helping me get more done with less crankiness. And anything that makes me less cranky by 5 o'clock is 2 thumbs up from me.
Right.
So then I got even more brave, and I added some AI to my terminal. So I have loved the Warp terminal app for years because it started as just being a better terminal. So the text box in Warp is a proper macOS text box where you can use Command Home and all of the text tools you're used to in every text editor work on the terminal when you're using Warp. And so I used it just for that. And I actually toggled off all the AI features that I kept on adding over the last 2 or 3 years. I just kept saying, no, don't want them. So then I went, well, hang on a sec. Check the terms of service, GDPR compliant. I can use this. So I toggled the toggle to on. Turns out it's brilliant. So I've really been enjoying that.
And now with something like Warp is free, right?
It's free, yeah. I mean,
and
they
is
will
the AI
sell
free?
you up to a ridiculous amount of queries.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't run into problems. So yes, spoiler alert, I use it out of work too, because the terms of service are fine. The data I put into it is fine. And I don't hit the limits. I'm sure you could if you tried, but it's not that expensive if you need like unlimited queries.
Okay.
And then the last thing that happened was I got a new Mac in work with an M4 chip. So I could use Apple Intelligence.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, my Mac Mini is adorable. What a magical machine. It's teeny tiny and it's such a beast.
Don't set a Kleenex box down, you'll lose it, right?
Right. Yeah.
Maybe the small tissue size, not even the whole square, right?
Yeah.
Now, I haven't heard a lot of people say they're wild about Apple Intelligence, but that's had a benefit for you.
Right, but a specific part of it, the writing tools, because I don't want a writing tool to write stuff for me, because writing is how I think. I start off not really knowing what I want to say, and I start typing, and then I change it and I move it around, and it starts off as 4 pages, and when I hit send, it's like 3 paragraphs. But it's 3 really good paragraphs, and now I understand what I want to say. But I do want to be able to select a giant... Do you ever get those email chains? They're like 20 emails long, and the only thing to you is thoughts, ? That is the one-word email from hell. Thoughts. I just say summarize.
Really?
Squish that down for me. Yeah, summarize that.
Because I'm not going to read what everybody wrote?
Well, especially because how do you figure out what's the quoted bit, and then you have the quoted bit?
Oh, yeah. I assume if somebody really irritates you and what it came back in the summary, I assume you go read exactly what they wrote and not assume that Apple wrote it correctly.
Yeah. Always, every AI is like an over-eager intern. Check their work.
So it used to be trust but verify. Now it's don't trust and verify.
And it depends on how important it is, right? If you just want a vague idea about something and it doesn't matter how accurate it is, whatever.
Yeah, what are these people yammering about?
Yeah, exactly. So that's cool. The other thing is when you have Apple Intelligence, the autocompletes are way, way, way more powerful than the old autocomplete you used to have. Because it's not just suggesting the end of the word, it's suggesting a whole sentence sometimes.
You know what bothers me is I'm a touch typist, and I'll be flying along typing away, and I'll have hit space, and Apple will have decided I'm just going to fill the rest of the sentence in for you. But I kept typing what I was going to type, and it ends up with what it said and I said. And I'm like, how did I typo that? That's like 5 words. Where did that come from?
What is this? This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It works for me. I guess I'd say it works for me. And then the other thing is, if I've written something and it doesn't sound right, it's like, my idea is here. Like, this is what I want to say, but it sounds like I'm an idiot. Select reword.
Really?
I may not accept it completely, but I'll let it have a go. And it's often better.
I wouldn't look down my nose on people allowing sentences to be rewritten for them, since I learned that even Adam Engst does that.
Right.
If Adam can do it, mere mortals. I still can't, though. I'm too arrogant. I'm sure what I wrote was better. I'm positive. I'm afraid it'll take the color out of what I say, too.
Oh, this is why I don't let it write entire things, and I don't let it start from scratch, because you're right. It's an averaging machine. It will give you very good average stuff.
Right.
I write with a bit of flair. Yeah, so I don't let it do a lot, but it is genuinely helpful. And so that's what I was doing when I decided I need to get this into my personal life. And that means thinking about my privacy, because now it is my data, and I'm off the reservation. There's no MDM policy.
Nobody's protecting you from yourself.
Right, exactly. There's nothing in the way. I could do anything, whether I should or shouldn't. So that made me stop and think. And it actually comes down to a pair of questions that are completely intertwined with each other. So the 2 questions you have to ask is, what does this particular AI tool do with my data? And what data will I be feeding this tool? Because you have 2 extremes here. On the one extreme, you can have a tool like Apple Intelligence, which gives you perfect privacy, so you can tell it anything. You can tell it your most sensitive information, your darkest secrets. You can tell it anything, and it will help you, and you're not sacrificing your privacy. So one of those questions effectively evaporates because you're at an extreme. The other extreme is when you go to one of these really high-end tools, the very, very, very latest model that cost billions with a B of dollars to train and cost them billions of dollars to run, and they give you for free. Well, hang on a second. That's not how it works. What's actually happening is they're letting you use it because they have an insatiable data appetite, and you're going to feed it. So then the question is all about, well, what am I going to feed this? And if it's a tool you use for things like only ever your open source code, Okay, fine. Feed on it. You probably have it anyway.
Sure.
But if it's, I'd like you to summarize this health document for me, or I'd like you to give me some sort of a report on my financial data, or I have all of this highly sensitive student data. Why don't you reorganize it into a nice table? No.
Maybe not. Maybe
Exactly.
not that one. Actually, Bill Gates, I heard him in an interview say one of the best uses of ChatGPT is and he specifically said ChatGPT is you get a report from your doctor on a medical test, just dump the whole thing into ChatGPT and have it tell you what it means.
Well, this is interesting, right? Because if you scratch the skin on Copilot, it is ChatGPT because Microsoft have a partnership with OpenAI. But it's the ChatGPT model on Microsoft's infrastructure, and it's running in virtual machines inside your data boundary. So it's a copy of the same brain, but working in a different environment.
Gotcha.
Yeah, which is an interesting nuance. So with those two questions in mind, that's sort of how I approach this. But one of those questions has some massive nuance I'm afraid is not always on people's radar. We all know that our prompts are going to the LLM. You type them, right? That is the most in-your-face thing. And if you attach a file and say, do something, well, you've attached a file, right? You're not in any sort of doubt about the fact that you're sharing that file. But a lot of these tools, especially when they're integrated into things, make heavy use of other information as context. Context is just a fancy word for a prompt you didn't type. It's all going up to the LLM. And that context is often spectacularly important to how the tool works. But it's that entire context, not just your prompts, that you have to ask the question of, what is in the context that may or may not be sensitive? And so
I just typed into ChatGPT, what do you do with the information I give you to help you answer my questions? The first thing in the list is context memory.
There you go. So when you're using a writing tool and it starts to give you really good suggestions, you obviously know it's seeing what you're typing right now this second, and you probably assume it's reading everything above your cursor. But it may well be reading everything below as well, because these LLMs often use a best insertion algorithm, not a best next word algorithm.
So that's when you're asking it to reword things.
Well,
that wouldn't be when you're giving it a prompt, because you haven't given it anything afterwards yet.
No, when I say writing tools, I mean things that offer you completions as you type.
Okay, so like GitHub Copilot is helping you write. Yeah, that's one of the ones that it looks before and after to say, oh, she's doing a for loop, let me fill this in.
So I'm sort of thinking if you're using a fancy editor which has an AI option, so maybe you're using a tool to help you write a book or something, and it has a whole big cool thing.
Grammarly.
Or Grammarly, yeah. They may well be using all of your text for context. And if the tool is built into a bigger writing project, it could actually be all the files in the project. That could all be ingested as part of your context. And so you do need to start thinking a little more carefully. Copilot is a perfect example. If you open a project in VS Code, it will ingest the whole project. So when it offers you completions, you'll notice, oh, hey, that's in our style. How did it know what your style is throughout your entire code base? Well, it ingested your whole code base. How did it know you wrote this function over here called boobity boop? It read it. The whole thing has been absorbed as context. So you have to bear that in mind. And one to watch out for that's becoming very popular because it's very empowering are browser plugins. A lot of them absorb the content of your tabs as context. So if you're logged in to your webmail, well, the content of your email is now going off as context. If you're logged into your healthcare portal, the content of what's on the screen is being sucked up by that plugin. Some of those plugins, they all do their own thing. You have to check the terms.
So you're saying just by having a plugin installed in a browser? Or
Well,
you're saying, let's say you've opened the portal to your medical facility and you're writing a message to your doctor. You're saying in a case like that, if you were having it do the editing of the tool of your text?
Well, it depends on what the plugin does, right? So some of these, you even have entire browsers whose job is to be your AI companion. And so AI is just a feature of the browser. Well, that means it's absorbing all of your surfing to help it offer its little helping hands and things. And you can say things like, hey, this tab over there, the third tab, how does that relate to the second tab?
Oh,
right.
Okay.
So it's absorbing all of this stuff. So a lot of these tools are designed to really help you. The other thing is a lot of these tools will offer connectors into your messages, contacts, and calendars. That's all context. That's why it wants the connector. So again,
unless you're a calendar app, I'm not giving you access to my calendar. Unless you're a contacts app, I'm not giving you access to my contacts.
Yeah, but the thing is, if you start to use these things as true assistants, you want to be able to say things, hey, I need to write an email to Bob. Is he free next week? Do I have a meeting next week?
Yeah. When you take it to that level.
Yeah, it becomes useful. You just have to check the terms of service. What is happening my data? Is it a case that if I use the free version, my data is free for all, and if I pay them $10 a month, I can have all of this cool functionality without losing my privacy? Well, is it worth $10? Well, it becomes a real question now, right?
Sure.
And so the answer is never yes or no. The answer is never universally bad tool, good tool. It's always a judgment. It's always a case of how does this tool's privacy policy align with the data I'm going to shove into it? And how do I feel about that? And it's perfectly reasonable to decide to pay for some things and to just accept the privacy exchange on other things. The key thing is that you're making informed and deliberate decisions, that you've thought about it. And once you've thought about it, you've done your due diligence, you've done your homework, do what makes you happy, but understand it.
Right. Okay.
So with all that said, I, in my personal life, have made my choices, and the easiest choice of all was Apple Intelligence, because the writing tools were working perfectly for me. I was upgrading my home machines to shiny new ones. I'll just toggle that on then. Bing. Okay, this is just like a having work, problem solved. I'm toying with toggling on ChatGPT because Apple's version of ChatGPT, if you don't log into your ChatGPT account, does offer you more privacy than the free version of ChatGPT because Apple and ChatGPT have an arrangement. So I'm tempted to toggle that on. I haven't done it yet. I've hovered over it a few times.
Okay.
What I have done, because I love just having a generic chatbot like I've been used to in Copilot, and I wanted something similar, and I did actually consider buying, because I run our family as if they're a corporation. We have a corporate Office 365 account for the family because we're that kind of family. Hey, I'm the IT person. What did you expect? But we had a talk about it at the most recent family get together, and we decided that we didn't think there was enough value in the AI tools for everyone to pay. So we're not going that route. So I've decided I am going to pay, but not Microsoft. I've ended up paying a Swiss company who make privacy their biggest selling point. You may have heard of them because they have a very popular app called Proton Mail. This is Proton. And they have an LLM. It's called Lumo. And you can use it for free, and it works great, and it's still very privacy protecting. It just doesn't have any memory. So if you want to be able to have it build up some context, it will do that for you end-to-end encrypted so your privacy is perfectly protected, but you need to pay them to store that end-to-end encrypted data in their cloud. It's encrypted, they can't see it, but they have to store it. And you also get unlimited queries because, well, you're now paying. But you can use it for free.
I'm looking at the pricing, so it's free for forever. With the restrictions you just said, if you pay annually, it's $10 a month, and if you just want to taste it for a month, it's $13.
Yeah,
which is a lot less than the other ones are all around 20. What are we giving up by going with Lumo?
I would say I'm going to make a rough guess. It's somewhere between 6 months and a year behind what you're going to get from the really big companies in terms of its capabilities. So I would say that if you're in Lumo now, it's like you're stuck on ChatGPT 4 or 4.5, not on ChatGPT 5.
But I feel like ChatGPT 5 is getting stupider, personally. She was just lying to me today, like 3 times in a row. I was like, why are you doing that? Why do you keep lying?
I find that I sometimes in work have started to use the free version of Lumo when Copilot doesn't give me answers I like. And Copilot is ChatGPT, remember? And it just sometimes, there's something about its answer that strikes me as off. And I'm like, I don't buy it. And I take exactly the same question into Lumo and it gives me an answer that's better. And I was like, oh, okay. But there's other times where I stick it into Lumo and it goes, oh, don't know what to tell you. And I shove it into Copilot and it goes, ta-da! So, swings and roundabouts.
Like all of these, I think having more than one might be the right answer anyway.
Yeah, and so with Lumo, I have a nice client on my iOS devices, and I really like it. It has a very cute cat logo. The whole interface is beautifully minimalist, and it talks Markdown at you, which is great. Or it'll let you talk Markdown to it, and it'll let you export stuff as Markdown. It's very nice that way. But there's no Mac app. It's a web interface, and I'm used to having like something I can get to easily as like...
Yeah. Well, you can make a web app for it.
Bing, bing, bing. That's what I did. And it works fine. And it has a cute icon, so it's perfect. So I have to say I'm very happy with Lumo. It's quite a good chatbot. It gives me nice answers. Copilot was an easy one. I just adopted it with my personal GitHub account. Something I should note here. It has always been really bad practice to put secrets into source code. If your script has your password in it, you're doing it wrong, right? Secrets don't go into code. If you've ever committed something to Git, you should never have had a secret in it in the first place. But lots of people do it. And lots of code given to you by LLMs will say, your password, $my password equals your password, and tell you to pop in your password. Like, the internet is full of people suggesting you do this. It's the wrong answer. There are ways around it. We'll talk about it on a PBS tidbit shortly, because I really want to share my love of Copilot, GitHub Copilot. It's wow. It's just changed how I work. But that's just something to say. Be careful of secrets. I also adopted the Warp Terminal. It's, again, you shouldn't be putting passwords into your terminal commands. If you have to enter them on the terminal, if you're doing it securely, it'll be one of those text boxes like SSH gives you where you type and you don't see it on screen.
Oh,
they're secure input. They're perfectly safe. If you type it on the command and hit enter, and then you can hit the up arrow and see your password, that's a problem. That's gone into your bash history file, which means it's now sitting in a plain text file on your computer. And if you're using an AI assistant, that's now context. You're leaking it. Don't do that.
Yeah.
So you should never have been doing that. And there are actually terminal commands to securely read into a variable. And then you can use it on the command line as $my variable name. So then your history file and the context you're sharing says basically, this is a placeholder for a password. Well, that's fine. It's just a placeholder. So there are ways around it. And I'll talk about those probably soon, because I'm very tempted to do another episode of Taming the Terminal about secrets in general, because people tend to have them in their bash histories, which means they're sitting on their computers in plain text for every piece of malware to just hoover up.
Hoover up. There, I was waiting for it.
So, and AI only makes this worse. So I think we should have that conversation on Taming the Terminal anyway. And when you get used to working that way, then the terms of service from things like Warp are just fantastic. And you're probably wondering, hang on a sec, Bart. A month and a half ago, I had a really fun conversation with you about deciding to pay for an ad-free search engine for Kagi.
Right.
Am I still doing that? Yeah. Because it's another one of those things where you use the right tool for the right job. When the thing I want is a web page, I use a search engine to give me a web page. When the thing I want is the answer to a generic question, I throw it into a chatbot. Because I want an answer to a concept, and I will get better results more easily from the chatbot. And with Lumo, there's a toggle to say, allow Lumo to search the web for me or don't. And if you say allow it, it will tell you where it got its answers.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
So you can go to the source and see whether it really said what it said?
Exactly. And the more important the thing is, the more I do that. And GitHub Copilot has always done that. It has always told you how it knows what it claims to know. And that's why that was the LLM that caught me from day one. It's like, okay, I can live with this because I know it's going to hallucinate, but at least it's showing me its homework so I can go and tell it when it's being an idiot. And so that really helps. So where I still use search engines is when I'm looking for news articles, I go to the news tab in Kagi. I've trained Kagi to tell it which websites I don't trust because they're just nonsense. So it only gives me good news stories. And I want to read the words of actual journalists, not an LLM's summary, because that's going to miss nuance. And when it comes to news, nuance is critical. I'm also often looking for links to put in show notes for Security Bits or Let's Talk Apple. I need actual links, and I need to know they're actually good.
And it just interpreting what it found is not what you're looking for in that case. I'm finding I'm using that feature less and less, but I definitely toggle back and forth in the same way you're talking about. What I get out of using a chatbot is when I don't know what I'm looking for.
Right.
And I need to say like, okay, so what is that movie? It had a guy and he like wore a hat and he had a dog and I think the dog was fat. And I just sit there blathering and all of a sudden it'll go, oh yeah, that was Matthew McConaughey and so blah blah blah. Like, okay, thanks.
That was it. Yeah, exactly.
Where you could never do that in a search engine.
Yeah. The other thing is sometimes I want a specific website. I am looking for the homepage for whatever project or a company's actual terms of service. I don't want a summary. I want the actual document.
Yes.
I want the actual webpage.
Right.
And sometimes I want to read API docs. I don't want a summary that approximates what the documentation says. I want to read the actual documentation. So I want the actual page on Mozilla Developer Network that defines whatever tag. I want the actual docs. And I can just say site : and then get links to the actual docs. Yes, please. But chatbots are great for so much else.
So as I recall, we had Adam Engst on who talked about using Perplexity as an AI search engine. And he uses it for that where he can still speak a natural language and have it spit back, but it always gives its sources. So you can follow it from there. And I think that's kind of how he went that way.
And that's kind of a halfway house because you're asking the chatbot to use a search engine and help you find the right answer. So it's like assisted searching.
Yeah, which I think is a nice compromise, except it's broken for me right now. It doesn't come up with anything on screen at all. Just a big empty square.
Good concept.
Yeah. Used to work.
Yeah. But the things I found the LLMs are just great at is when I have a language question. That's literally they're large language models. I shouldn't be surprised. But if I want to know something about language, I ask an LLM and I get amazing answers. So what is the difference between aptitude and attitude, or between infer and defer?
Or infer and imply.
Oh, yeah, exactly, right? Or what does this phrase mean? Right? You'll often hear someone from a different country use an idiom you don't recognize. Well, the LLM will know about it because it's an idiom somewhere. Or, how do I use this word? Like, I hear people using this word. How do I use it? And I'll give you 20 great examples and it'll show you where it's used. So if you want to ask it about language, you're in its home turf. You'll get great answers. The other thing I love to ask it for is comparisons of technical stuff. Because I could read 20 web pages about this thing and 20 web pages about that thing and figure out the relative merits. Or I could let the chatbot hoover all that up and give me the two summaries and the difference between them, and it's perfect at that. So I will say things like, how does, say, Lex compare to Flex? They're two different products for doing something very similar. And it will just tell me, well, they're the same in this way and they're different in that way. And it'll usually make you a little table, show you here's the features of one, the features of the other, tick box, tick box.
And then you check it.
And then I check it.
Because it's going to lie to you.
Well, it depends on how important it is, right? If I'm just trying to get a vague 40,000-foot view, I'm just going to assume this is an approximate answer. And maybe all I need.
The example I keep giving is when I was talking to a friend of mine about buying a car, and I created a little table of cars that would fit in my garage because I have this stupid short garage. So I said, okay, all of them have to be under this limit. I am not going to buy a car based on that information.
It's a starting point.
It certainly is. It's lovely, but I think I'll go check that one, see where it's lying.
The other thing I like to ask it is, what do people generally use to achieve a certain end? Because the internet's full of tutorials from people, so that's all been hoovered up by these chatbots. So if I describe a problem, what have other people used to fix it? And that's a great way to find useful tools. Or
one problem I've had in there, in kind of this technical comparisons that you're talking about, is I originally, for a long time, I was able to ask it questions about apps that I use. And in fact, I've talked about on the show where I'll say, like in Affinity Photo, which I don't use very often, or Affinity Designer, where is that tool that does blah, blah, blah? And it would tell me the answer. But that's where it's getting worse. I asked it just today. I got a new August lock and I had the app shows up as a complication, which isn't working. But not the app isn't in the Apple Watch. I can't find it. And it came back and it said, oh, well, that's because it isn't a standalone Apple Watch app. And I said, okay, how do I start making this go? And it says, well, open the Apple Watch on your phone, the Apple Watch app, and look for the August Lock app that should be installed on the phone. And I said, you mean the one you just finished telling me doesn't exist? And she went, oh, yeah, that's right. It's not there. I mean, it was like seconds apart. It's just completely wrong. And it's disappointing. I'm kind of sad because it used to be able to do that better than it does now, I think.
Yeah, that is disappointing.
Yeah.
The other thing I like to ask it is sometimes I'll be looking at something and there's like two protocols for doing secure email. And it's like, well, what is the difference between SMIME and GPG or PGP? And you just ask it and it will just compare them for you. And it's just so much easier. Or, and it'll tell you the uses for one and the uses for another. It's just perfect. And then the other thing I have been throwing, especially at Copilot, is technical questions, because these things are all documented, usually in too much detail. And I could read it all. I really could. But it'd take me forever. And the very, very first thing I asked Copilot to do for me ever was to help me understand Microsoft licensing for a specific feature I needed in Defender. It saved me days of work because it ingested it.
There are people who spent their lives trying to answer that. Didn't we find somebody who created a table that you could click through to try to understand software licensing for Microsoft?
It was a website with an entire database, and you could get it to draw you custom diagrams with all the different rules you give it, and it will draw little boxes around all the different things. It's very complex.
Yeah. That's a perfect use for it.
Yeah. And another related example is permissions, because in large product suites like all of Office 365, there's more than one mechanism to give a particular user a particular ability. And there's pros and cons to them all. So the one that I needed help with was the right to release an email from quarantine. That spans all the boundaries because that is a feature of Exchange Online. And that is a feature of the general Office suite. And that is a feature of Microsoft Defender. So there's lots of different ways of granting that permission. And if you grant it from, say, the Office 365 end, you're giving them massive rights over all of Office 365. That's appropriate for the sysadmin team, not for the service desk.
Okay.
If you granted it them through Defender, then they get all sorts of rights on everything to do with Defender, which is fine for the cybersecurity team, not for your sysadmins and not for your service desk. So actually, I needed to grant it through Exchange Online because the roles for Exchange Online are all about managing user experiences using, Microsoft email suite.
So using a chatbot, you're able to give it the flavor around the question to get you to the right piece of information on
what I
actually
asked it was, which roles grant this one permission? And it then told me, well, you have three options. You can either give them global admin on all of Office 365 with a giant big warning that that's a terrible idea, or you can give them security operator power within Microsoft Defender, which is suitable for people who do blah, 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 but utterly unsuitable for blah, 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 or you can give them this particular role in Exchange Online. And I was like, well, there's an option of three. And then my next question was, where in the morass of Microsoft control panels do I find that permission? And that should be an easy question, but a bit like your question about where do I find that watch app, that's a really difficult question because Microsoft make more portals than they make names for things. And I make a lot of names for things. So it's really good for that. And the other thing I like to ask it is, like, you'll go to use a technology and it will offer you 5 different functions that sound like they do what you want. They're obviously not the same as each other. Why else would there be 5 of them? I really like to ask it to explain to me why I would use function X over function Y to achieve problem Z. And it usually gives me good answers. And then entirely not related to work, really helpful for cooking. I know people say the internet is going to hell in a handcart because it's full of horrible ads and it's just full of glop. That is 200% true of recipes. Google for a recipe and you will find the same recipe 50 times with 50 different completely artificially generated backstories pasted in front of it. 5 million ads of the most obnoxious kind you can conceive, because it's all about getting clicks. It's awful.
I do want to put in a little interlude here. Is I know one of the things that irritates people about recipe websites is they always start with a description of how grandma used to sew her gingham aprons, and you just want to know how to make peach cobbler, right?
Right.
Bart, what is every blog post I write? It's exactly like that. Well, let me tell you the history here. And I give you this. I am the gingham apron writer of blogging and podcasting, I'm afraid. But that's okay. I want to tell my stories.
I was going to say, you have stories worth telling. These are clearly AI-written, pretend grandma stories.
So I didn't know that. I thought they were just people who really wanted to talk about grandma. Okay.
Well, they were at one stage. And they used to be quite good and not full of awful ads. And they've just been hoovered up by the LLMs and now they just get spat out. It's awful.
I think you skipped over two more of your technical ones. Searching for settings, like in iOS.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I did. I don't remember where I put that in my show notes, but I definitely remember typing that.
Yeah. It's in section 3.3. And I love that. I didn't want you to skip this one because I find it fascinating that I'm not on the whole, Apple's way behind in the AI bandwagon, whatever. I don't care. But your search ought to be able to search settings.
Right.
You're in settings. There are a very few number of words. I mean, I could probably type all of the words that are in settings inside of maybe a couple of hours. I could type that data set. That is a very small set of words. Your search should be able to find out where the thing I'm looking for is. That isn't that hard. So it's a great idea to say, in iOS 26, where did they hide this?
Yeah. And the other thing, like Apple promised us for the Apple Intelligence features they haven't shipped, and they're now promising us for next spring. One of the things was that Siri would understand the settings. That was actually one of the things, that Siri would understand the features in your phone.
Well, when they brought it out, when they did deliver the OSs with some muted format of that, I thought they said it was going to be in it then. I guess not.
I think it was on the coming soon list.
Bart.
Yeah, I mean, they have a support site.
It's so big.
Yeah, but they have a support site. Pour that into an LLM. Train an LLM on the Apple support pages and put that into Siri. That's it. That's all I want you to do.
I wonder if we can just do that. Why don't we just do that? Just say,
I was going to say you definitely could.
Only the Apple support pages that don't count the forums, right? You just
you don't want the forums.
The query.
Yeah. There's definitely tools for doing that.
Yeah.
So some of the cooking stuff I have asked it with amazing success is questions like, in which cuisine is this ingredient traditionally used? Because
like cumin. You want to know who uses that?
Well, the perfect example was king oyster mushrooms. I had never cooked them before, but we have a shelf in one of our supermarkets where they just have cool stuff they managed to find somewhere, and it will probably never come back. It could be anything. And if I see something I don't recognize, I just buy it, and then I go figure out what to do with it. And I was like, oyster
you have
mushroom.
Changed so much. Your cooking is astonishing now. Bart had like 5 things on the menu for the first 36 years, I think it was.
Yeah, or 40. But yeah. And now I just ask it, and it gives you these things. Well, actually, king oyster mushrooms are used a lot in Mediterranean cooking. Okay, great. Then I start to go, okay, well, I wonder what can I do? So what else do I have? I have lots of tomatoes. Okay, what can I do with king oyster mushrooms and tomatoes? I have some fresh basil. And before you know it, you're away, right? You have something to cook for dinner. You have some sort of vegetable. You have the oven at 200 Celsius for the 3 other things you're cooking. So you're just like, how long do carrots need at 200 Celsius? I don't know. What herbs should go well with whatever it is I have here? Right? I have a piece of hake. What herbs should I use with that? I have X and Y in the fridge. Help? Right? What can I make with this? Yeah. What's the best way to prepare this weird, like, what do I do with an okra to get it ready to cook? Well, I hadn't a clue. I recently discovered okra for the first time. It's a very odd vegetable.
Yeah. It's a little odd, but you tried it.
I tried. Oh, I had it today, actually, air fried. Oh, it's great air fried. Crispy good. And other stuff like, you'll get a recipe and you have 9 things out of 10. And you don't have whatever, mirin came across recently. So you just ask him, what can I use instead of mirin? This is a bit of rice wine vinegar and some honey to add the sweetness. Thank you very much. Great, I'm away. Or the other one I hit recently, my oven was full. My recipe called for oven, but I have an air fryer. So it was like, how do I translate this temperature and this time for an oven to an air fryer? And it went, well, actually, here's the equation. Blah, 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 blah. The temperature becomes this and the time becomes 5 minutes shorter. So in your case, blah, 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 ding, 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 bonk. There it is. And it was perfect. So very impressive for these kind of things. So the last thing I have in my show notes is a smattering of anecdotes. This is not a scientific study, right? These are just things that it did at a moment in time when I had the presence of mind to take a screenshot and the time and mental space to do it. and to eventually find it in my photo roll and remember to save it. There's probably others. If I scroll back far enough in my timeline, I'll probably find others. But anyway. So one of the first things I asked it was a perfect example of why Copilot is great for Microsoft's licensing hell. Does A3 with security add-on cover Defender for Office 365 P1? Doesn't even sound like English. That was actually what I needed an answer to. And it was able to give me a very clear answer. And notice the little box with the drop down with the number 1. That's the list of sources with the primary source auto-selected. And if I hit the drop down, it'll show me everything else it pulled from. And I can just click on it and it'll open in a tab and then I can double check its homework. The other thing it always does is offer you next questions. And so if I click on any of those 3 boxes, they'll auto-populate into the message and I can then tweak them to my liking and hit send.
Oh, okay.
So it does, like if you're in danger of losing the ability to continue the conversation, it'll help you keep going. It's very good though. Literally one of the very first things I asked Lumo was to help me with some language because I was working on slides for a mug presentation I gave a few weeks ago. And I was like, is it a camera phone or a phone camera? Are they the same thing or are they almost the same thing? Well, they're not the same thing. And Lumo gave me the perfect explanation of when I should say phone camera and when I should say camera phone.
Oh, that's nice.
This is perfect. And then another great one is the Warp terminal. So certificate authority authorization DNS records are both spectacularly important and very obscure. You set them and you forget them. So I have to interact with them once or twice every 2 or 3 years. I could remember the arguments I have to give to the dig command. I would go man, dig, I could read through it, I could get the answer. It would give me output that's all jargony, and then I would go to the specification for CAA records and I would figure it out. And half an hour later, I would have my answer. But I decided to see if Warp could do better. So I asked what I wanted in English to Warp. I said, how do I get the CAA DNS records for the domain? And it's a public domain, so it's perfectly safe for me to say moodle.maynoothuniversity.ie. And it says, to get those records, you can use the dig command, which is a DNS lookup tool available on Mac OS. Here's how. And then it showed me the command, which initially had a button saying run, but now it has a little green tick box because I did hit run and it ran without an error. So that's why I got a tick box. And I now have a disclosure chevron, which would show me the raw terminal output if I cared. But I don't need to check that because it then explained the answer. It says the certificate authorization DNS record for blah, blah, blah. It shows the record CAA 0 issue Amazon AWS.com. That means it's a non-critical statement. It's allowed to issue certificates, and the value Amazon AWS.com means only Amazon Web Services is authorized to issue certificates for this domain, which is what I had hoped to see, because AWS is supposed to be issuing certificates for that website, and no one else. Right. And it just explained it perfectly. I could have done that myself, but it would have taken me half an hour. That was done in 5 minutes, and it was perfect.
The other thing I like in a situation like that is where you're doing some maybe independent research. Perhaps you've asked it for the URL of some place that's going to explain how to do something, and you get a command. I give it back to the chatbot and say, okay, break this down for me. What does each piece of this mean? And I'm fairly certain it can do that without lying.
Yes, and especially I would be double confident about Warp because it's been trained on a subset of the internet. So it knows the man pages and it's not going to be confused by amateur hour over on various other websites. It gives priority to the facts. So that's kind of why I like using a dedicated tool, because the LLMs they use have been extra trained on specific subsets. Because you know the way you can take a base LLM and then give it specialist knowledge? You can even do that
Yeah.
actually yourself on your own Mac with, what is it, Llama or one of those? Olama? Olama, that's the one.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so a lot of these tools will have models you recognize, but they're not the vanilla version of that model. They've been given extra information, extra training, and so they're often extra smart in the appropriate area of expertise.
Yeah, you could probably also ask even an untrained model to say, okay, I want you to break this command down for me, but only use the man pages for the command to tell me the answer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you could engineer it with a good prompt. Yeah, you can do a lot by giving a good prompt. And actually, I noticed in the screenshot, which is from a while ago, that was Claude 4 Sonnet is actually what Warp reached out to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so basically, that's a little flavor of how I've been getting on. And I just sort of want to end with some final thoughts. Don't just blindly use AI tools. Think about the information you're sending them and learn about how the tools use the data. And as you've said quite a few times already today, always remember that LLMs don't know what they don't know. They always sound confident,
but they will answer
right?
with equal confidence when they're full of crap.
So expert, right? They use all the right grammar and all the right phrasing to sound like they're completely educated on this topic. I had someone tell me that I asked for some medical advice and it sounded so medical and so like my doctor, I believed it completely. I was like, oh my God, that's how they lied to you. They don't know what they don't know.
And remember, they're being trained on the internet. What percentage of the internet is wrong?
Yeah.
Just that part alone.
Yeah. Do you want the average opinion or do you want an expert opinion? Because those can be very different.
And remember, OpenAI, we've talked about this a couple times already, OpenAI published a report saying that hallucinations are a mathematical inevitability. They cannot be engineered out of these systems. So, do you feel lucky?
Very good to know. Yeah, right. Do you feel lucky? The thing is, they're right more than they're wrong, but they're still wrong a lot. And then the other thing is, me personally, I just avoid LLMs that don't tell me where the information came from. That to me is a feature I look for. It's like, what are you? What have you been smoking to come to this answer?
Yeah, I've been leaning towards ChatGPT lately, and I think you've moved me over quite a bit because I have to say, okay, give me the source for the garbage you just spit out on screen. What was that? Perplexity, I did just reopen it, and it was working fine now. And when I ask it anything, it immediately gives me the sources. So I just put in Mozilla developer documents for JavaScript. And before it started spitting information on screen, the first thing it did was gave me a bunch of buttons to push to get directly to the documentation.
Perfect.
So it is a search. What does he call it? It's a search bot AI engine.
Right, because it
an
is
AI
actually
search engine. That's what
web.
he calls it.
Yeah, because it is searching the web for you. It's just helping you write the searches because it's writing them for you, and it's helping you interpret the results because it's ingesting them for you and then summarizing them.
Yeah, very good. Well, I knew this would be a lot of fun. When I read the show notes, it was, if possible, more fun and more interesting in person. This was a great topic. I really enjoyed this. I think I loved what I wrote Bart a note that said I was super excited because I really loved the notes. I was just checking to see if they were there, and then I got stuck in reading them because I couldn't stop because it was so interesting. And he said, oh, I'm so excited because I've been talking to anybody who will listen about this and nobody wants to hear about it.
Yeah, no, if I say one more thing about an LLM to my darling beloved, I think he might just hit me. Having said that, I wandered in the other day and I saw the Lumo cat looking back at me. So it's like, well, some of it went in. And he did say to me, yeah, GitHub Copilot's quite good. So it's like, oh, 2 things went in.
I was talking to one of my nerd friends in a Zoom call, and I was talking about the fact that I have so many friends online, like, you're one of my very best friends, and we've only met each other once in real life, but I don't talk to that many people in real life. I mean, I don't go to work anymore, so there aren't the baristas are my friends, but the difference is that you can find niche friends, people who like what you like, what you care about. Well, if I talk to somebody in the grocery store, they're probably not going to want to learn about privacy on LLMs either, to be honest.
I have really good conversations with my barista because my coffee place is amazing and they hire the nicest people, but it's not about LLMs.
Right. It's not what you really dig and get into, what blows your dress up, as it were.
I did have a really fun, nerdy conversation about coffee this morning with the very nice barista who was on duty this morning. We had a very good conversation because it was really quiet.
Oh, fun. What a good time. I usually just talk about my dog.
Oh,
all right.
Okay.
Well,
I'm really looking forward to seeing you next year because I'm going to bring you to my coffee place because they are a dog place. They have a bowl for the doggies, and every cup of coffee comes with the option of a free puppuccino, which is a tiny cup of whipped cream with dog biscuits, like hundreds of thousands little dog biscuits on top. And oh my God, you should see the dogs. They just hoover it up. And everything behind the coffee machine is a little washing line with Polaroids of dogs, of all of the customers with their name written underneath them in Sharpie.
Oh, that's so cute.
All the doggies.
I have to say, it was Kepler's 1-year birthday, and he got a pup cup from Starbucks, which is now they don't put dog biscuits in it, but it is whipped cream, so he definitely liked it. So that was good. Well, we spoiled the lead. We are going to go to Ireland next year as part of another trip. So we've made a plan to see Bart while we're out there.
Yes, and eventually Bart booked the right holidays. Eventually.
All right, Bart. Well, this was so much fun. I really enjoyed it. This is fascinating, interesting. I'm going to try all these tools. I got to get into Warp. Anyway.
Excellent.
All right.
Okay. Until next time, happy computing.
Well, that's going to wind us up for this week. Did you know you can email me at allison@podfeet.com anytime you like? If you have a question or a suggestion, just send it on over. Remember, everything good starts with podfeet.com. You can follow me on Mastodon at podfeet.com/Mastodon. If you want to listen to the podcast on YouTube, podfeet.com/YouTube. If you want to join in the conversation where you can talk to people like Eddie Tonkoi and Bart Bouchatz, you can join our Slack community at podfeet.com/Slack. You could support the show by going to Apple Podcasts and doing a 5-star review, or if you really do want to send in some money, you could go to podfeet.com/Patreon or a one-time donation at podfeet.com/donate, or you could use PayPal, podfeet.com/PayPal. And if you want to join in the fun of the live show, we'll see you next week. Head on over to podfeet.com/live on Sunday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific time and join the friendly and enthusiastic Nosilla Castaways. Thanks for listening and stay subscribed.